This video will focus on the new features added in ItemBuilder v2.1. We're going to create a staff that shoots shulker bullets, a trident that slows down nearby enemies and speed boosts the player, and a crossbow that acts like the Mancubus enemy from Doom 2. So the first things first, you're going to need to make sure you have the latest version of ItemBuilder installed. So make sure you at least have ItemBuilder v2.1, otherwise nothing in this video will work. And make sure you go to the Settings tab on ItemBuilder Studio and select the correct datapack version corresponding with the datapack version you have downloaded. Otherwise, the correct effects and conditions will not show up in the menus. Alright, so let's start by creating a staff that shoots shulker bullets. This is pretty simple. Create a condition. It's going to be used carrot on a stick. Let's say you want it to be used, have a half a second cooldown, so you can fire a shulker bullet once every half second. So go here, this is going to be the special attack section. And we're going to shoot a shulker bullet, and let's go. Alright, we have our Shulker Staff now. Let's summon some enemies to use it on. So, fire the shulker bullets. They home in and grant levitation, just like you'd expect, in their weird, idiosyncratic homing method. And there we go. So now we're going to create a trident that slows nearby enemies and grants a speed boost to nearby players. So we're going to use this new activator type, Thrown Trident, which activates on tridents that have been thrown and are currently in the world, not in the player's hand. So we're going to use this new activator type, Thrown Trident, which, as opposed to being in the player's hand, is when the trident is thrown and currently in the world as a projectile entity. So we're going to create this first condition, which is Trident is in ground. I like to do this to make it so that the trident has to actually land before it can start granting effects. But that's up to you. So next, let's create a visual effect for the trident. These are always good to have on tridents, just to indicate that the trident is special when it's in the world. This radius 10 will create a circle around the trident that indicates how far the trident's effect will go. So you want to match that up to the other distances for the filters and stuff like that. We're going to make this light blue, and we're going to duplicate it and have another one that's on the trident itself. We're going to do handle. Alright, so now let's filter on nearby monsters. Executed as all nearby monsters with a radius. Make sure to select the same radius as the particle effect. And the effect is going to be minus movement speed. We're going to do minus 50 for now. Then we'll duplicate it and do for nearby players instead. And we're going to do plus movement speed instead of minus. Let's try it in game. Alright, so we got these creepers approaching us, so let's throw down our trident. And there we go. We're given a speed boost, and the creepers are significantly slowed down, but only when we're in the radius. If we step outside of it, we lose our speed boost. And of course, if we pick up the trident, it goes away as well. So this last item is probably going to be the most complex item that we've created so far, and I call it the Mancubus Crossbow. If you've ever played Doom 2, that is the one from 1994, you may remember the Mancubus enemy, which fires a triple volley of shots. And for each volley, it fires 2 fireballs at you, one that goes right towards you and one that goes off to the side. But it's random whether it'll go to the left or to the right. So now let's learn how we can create such an item. So the first thing we're going to need to do is make it so that we can do the triple volley. And the way we're going to do this is by making the crossbow automatically reload itself the first 2 times you fire it. Alright, so let's create a condition for when the player loads a crossbow. Loaded crossbow, and the effect will be, we're going to use saved counter here. Set saved counter 1 to equal 2. So this will then track the number of reloads we still have left. When you reload your crossbow, you've got the arrow in it, plus 2 more shots that will be automatically reloaded. So now we create another condition, which is crossbow is not loaded. So if the crossbow is not currently loaded, then we check to see if we can automatically load it. Saved counter 1 is greater than or equal to 0, greater than or equal to 1. If we have at least 1 automatic load left, then we can automatically reload it. First thing we need to do is decrease this counter to track that we have in fact loaded the crossbow once by decreasing saved counter by 1. Then the other effect will be to load the crossbow. It's an item modification reload this crossbow. It doesn't really matter what you load it with, because we're going to replace it with a fireball anyway. So let's just check to see that this item works. Alright, let's try it out. You load the crossbow, then fire it. It automatically reloads itself. Fire it again, automatically reloads itself. Fire it a third time, and there we go. It's not loaded. It's not going to load itself a third time because it ran out of automatic reloads. Then we can load it again, fire it 3 more times. You can always fire a triple volley of arrows before having to reload it. So now that we've got the auto-loading part complete, we can make it shoot fireballs instead. So we're going to create another condition, fired crossbow. And the effect is going to be... So the first thing we need to do, so we're going to use the special attack section again. We're going to kill the launched projectile. This means the arrow that we fired will be destroyed, so we can replace it with a fireball. There we go. Now let's try that. Alright, so now let's see if this crossbow shoots fireballs instead of arrows. We load it. There we go. See, the arrow gets removed, and we only see a fireball, no arrow. So the next thing we need to do is make it shoot a volley of fireballs instead of just the one. The way we can do this is with a new filter, which is the horizontal triple volley. Let's set the angle to about 15 degrees, I think that's about right. Then we can add the effect of shooting a fireball. So what this filter does is it executes 3 times, once facing forward, once facing to the right 15 degrees, and once facing to the left 15 degrees. Actually, it goes left, middle, right, which that's going to matter later, the order at which it does them. So this filter is going to cause the effects and conditions inside it to execute 3 times, facing in different directions. So this fireball will end up getting shot once to the left, once forward, and once to the right. Let's see it in action. Alright, so if we load the crossbow, fire it, we'll see it shoots 3 fireballs, not just 1. So the last thing to do is make it decide at random whether it should fire a fireball to the left or to the right. And brace yourself, because this last part is definitely the most complicated part. So yeah, I'll re-explain it a couple times just to make sure you understand, but let's get going here. So the first thing we're going to need to do is add a new condition in here that decides at random whether the fireball will go to the left or to the right. So we're going to do random chance 50%. So then the effect is going to set tick counter, the first tick counter that is, we're going to set it to 1. So tick counter, if you remember, tick counter always starts at 0 for each tick. And this condition is going to give it a random chance of whether it'll be 0 or 1. And the way that is because it starts at 0 and has a 50% chance of executing this condition and setting tick counter to 1. So after this condition, it'll have a 50% chance of being 0 and a 50% chance of being 1. So the next thing we're going to need to do is create another tick counter, increase tick counter 2. So we're actually going to need 2 tick counters going in parallel. Alright, so then we now need to create conditions that check what tick counter 2 is equal to. Tick counter 2 equals 1. So what these two do together is, because this filter runs 3 times, the first time it runs, tick counter 2 will be equal to 0, but then this effect will set it to 1. Then this condition will activate because tick counter 2 is now equal to 1. Then when this is all done, the filter will run itself a second time, this time facing forward instead of to the left. So tick counter 2 will now equal to 2 because it got increased a second time, and now this condition won't be true, and it won't execute what's inside of it. And then it'll do it again a third time, increasing it to 3, and once again this condition won't fire. So we're going to actually need 3 of these conditions, 1 for the left fireball, 1 for the middle fireball, and 1 for the right fireball. Each, so it'll look like this. Condition equal to 1, this will only be true when you fire your first fireball. A second condition, which will only be true once the tick counters reach 2 on the second fireball, and once for the third fireball. And this allows us to do different things for each fireball. In fact, one thing you could do is have it fire a different projectile for each one. Let's just try that right now. And you can see each of the 3 projectiles was different. We got a fireball on the left, an arrow in the middle, and the trident on the right. So now we can finish it up with the logic that decides whether the fireball will go left or to the right. The first thing is that we can make the center one just always shoot a fireball, because the middle one will always shoot a fireball. Alright, so now these outside ones, the left fireball and the right fireball, these are going to be decided by what we decided earlier, tick counter 1. Tick counter 1 will be either 0 or 1 at a 50-50 chance. So if it's 0, we're going to say that this left fireball will shoot, and if it's 1, then we're going to say that the right fireball will shoot. So let's add a condition here. Tick counter 1 is equal to 0. And then this one will be tick counter 1 is equal to 1. So if tick counter is equal to 0, then this condition will activate, causing this fireball to shoot on the left. However, if it's equal to 1, decided by this random chance, then this condition will fire, causing this fireball to shoot. So let's fill those in and try it out. That should be it. Just a quick fix here. I accidentally set this as tick counter 2, so it should actually be tick counter 1. So just make sure you got that right. Tick counter 1 is the one that decides which fireball gets shot, whether it gets shot to the left or the right, and tick counter 2 allows us to keep track of which projectile we're currently on. Alright, so let's take our brand spanking new Mancubus Crossbow and take it on its maiden voyage. Load it. We get to fire a volley of 3 shots. You see, it randomly decides whether it goes left or to the right, but it always shoots in the middle. So this is obviously on the more complicated end of item builder item design. By no means do you have to make your items as complicated as this. This is just an example of kind of the upper limit of kind of the craziness you can create with item builder. But if you're up for it, it's available for you. So hopefully this video taught you something, and I'll see you in the next one.